Everyone has that one job. The one that pays the bills but takes a toll on your sanity. For me, that was the summer of 2018 when I worked as the night watchman at the old Linwood Fairgrounds. It wasn't a bad job overall. Mostly, it was just quiet. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I had to patrol every 2 hours, which meant I would take a slow drive around the perimeter in a beat-up golf cart. I checked the padlocks on the food stalls and made sure no kids had broken into the abandoned Ferris wheel. The fairgrounds were huge, with the state highway on one side and miles of farmland on the other. My little security booth was near the main entrance, while the farthest point on my route was Field 7. That field was an empty lot used for overflow parking during the annual Harvest Festival, which hadn't happened in 3 years. It was just a vast, dark space of cracked asphalt, with weeds pushing through and surrounded by dense trees that seemed to swallow the light from my cart's weak headlights. The first night I heard it, I almost didn't. It was faint, blending with the sound of crickets. It was a whistle. Not a melody, just 3 notes, a high note, a low note, and one that slid somewhere in between. It came from the tree line at the far end of Field 7. I remember stopping the cart, turning off the engine, and just listening. The silence out there was complete. Then it came again, those 3 lonely notes. It sounded almost sad. I shrugged it off as some farmer out for a late walk or a kid messing around. I finished my patrol without giving it much thought. But it returned the next night. And the next. Always from Field 7. Always the same 3 notes. I started to time my patrols slower, just to listen for it. It became a strange, eerie part of my routine. I even found myself humming it sometimes in the booth. Then, changes started. Subtle things. One night the whistle was closer. It wasn't from the tree line, it was coming from halfway across the field. I shone my flashlight, but the beam just vanished in the darkness, not reaching anything. The air felt still, too still. The crickets had stopped. Another night, I saw a figure. Just a dark shape against the trees, way out at the edge. It was tall and thin. It was there for a moment before disappearing. My heart skipped, but I convinced myself it was just a trick of the light, a shadow. My mind playing games on the graveyard shift. But the following week, I couldn't explain it away. I was driving along the perimeter road of Field 7 when the whistle came not from the field but from right beside me. From the other side of a thick hedge that bordered the road. It was so clear and so piercingly close that I felt my breath catch. I slammed on the brakes. Nothing. There was nothing there. Just the hedge. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. I grabbed the radio, my finger hovering over the call button for my manager. But what would I say? "Hey, Bob, a spooky whistle is following me." I knew I'd sound insane. I put the radio down. I drove the rest of that patrol with the cart wide open, never looking back. That was the turning point. The routine was broken. The whistle was no longer background noise. It had become an interaction. 2 nights later, it started raining. A heavy drizzle misted up the windows of my security booth. I dreaded the patrol, especially Field 7. The cart's plastic roof leaked, and the world outside was reduced to a dark, gloomy circle of light from my flashlight. As I approached Field 7, I saw it. Through the sheets of rain, way out in the center of that black expanse, was the figure. It stood facing me. It was too far away to make out any features, just a humanoid silhouette, impossibly still amid the storm. And it was whistling. Those 3 notes. But now they weren't sad. They sounded wrong. The pitch was off, like it was being whistled through a mouth that didn't work properly, a wet gurgling sort of whistle. I froze. The golf cart idled, its engine sounding weak. I fumbled for the high beams and clicked them on. The light hit it. It wasn't far away at all. It stood maybe 20 feet in front of the cart. It was tall, gaunt, wearing tattered, soaked clothes that clung to its frame. Its skin was pale, almost gray in the light. And it had no face, no eyes, no nose, just a dark hole where its mouth should have been. From that hole came those three terrible notes. It took a step forward. Not a walk, an unnatural lurch. I didn't think. I screamed. I threw the cart into reverse, spinning the wheel as my tires slipped on the wet asphalt. I didn't look back. I just drove fishtailing all the way back to the security booth. I slammed the door and locked it. I called my manager. I was crying, hyperventilating, and babbling about a man in Field 7. He told me to calm down and said he'd call the police. They arrived and searched. Of course, they found nothing. No footprints in the mud. No sign of anyone. They gave me a look I'll never forget, a mix of pity and disbelief. I quit the next day and never went back. That was 6 years ago. Now, I have a normal day job, a wife, a kid, and a life. I've mostly put it behind me. But sometimes, late at night, if I'm taking out the trash or coming home from a trip, when the world is quiet and the wind is just right, I'll hear it. Faint, from a few streets over or from the woods behind my house. A high note, a low note, and one that slides somewhere in between. And I know it's not about the place. It was never about the fairgrounds. It was about me hearing it. It was about me seeing it. And I have this terrible, sinking feeling that it's just a matter of time before I turn a corner and see it standing there again, whistling for me. After the whole fairgrounds incident, I promised myself I wouldn't work another night shift. But bills don't pay themselves. So, I took a data entry job. The catch: someone had to be in the office until midnight to sync servers with the West Coast branch. I was the newest hire, so I got volunteered. The Bryson and Reed law firm was a nice place. It was modern, 12 floors up with a view of the city lights. But after 7 p.m., it became a different world, a tomb of steel and glass. The cleaning crew came through at 8, and then it was just me. Just me, the hum of the servers, and about 10,000 square feet of empty, dark offices. My desk was in a cubicle farm in the center of the floor. The only light came from my monitor and the emergency exit signs. To get to the break room, you had to walk down a long hallway, past the conference rooms with dark glass walls, and past the copy room. The copy room always felt off. The motion sensor light inside was lazy, taking a full 3 seconds to flicker on. It was always too hot or too cold. And it had one of those old, industrial copiers that sounded like a jet engine starting up. The first sign something was wrong was on a Tuesday. I had just made a coffee run. I came back to my desk and my chair was gone. Just gone. I found it 5 minutes later, pushed all the way into the far corner of the kitchen, facing the wall. I shrugged it off. The cleaning crew must have been messing with me. Then the copies started. I'd be working, and from down the hall, I'd hear it whir clunk. Whir clunk. The sound of the copier in the dark room, doing just one copy. I'd get up and walk down the hall. The motion light would click on to reveal an empty room. The copier's display would be dark, asleep. But the glass would feel warm, like it had just been used. I started avoiding the copy room altogether. One night, around 11:30, I was buried in spreadsheets. The air conditioner shut off, plunging the floor into a silence so deep I could hear the blood pumping in my ears. That's when I heard it. A new sound. A voice. It was muffled, coming from the direction of the copy room. It sounded like someone trying to speak through a mouthful of paper. A wet, rustling whisper. I couldn't make out the words, just a low, rhythmic muttering. My blood went cold. I sat perfectly still, my fingers frozen over the keyboard. The whispering stopped. And then I heard the soft, unmistakable sound of a single sheet of paper sliding out of the copier's tray. That was it. I wasn't paid enough for this. I grabbed my keys, my heart hammering against my ribs. I just had to get my coat from the closet near the elevators and get out. The elevator bank was on the other side of the copy room. I had to walk past it. I crept down the hall, my sneakers silent on the carpet. The door to the copy room was half closed. As I passed, I made the mistake of looking in. The motion light was off. The room was pitch black. But in that darkness, I saw a shape. A person-shaped shadow, darker than the rest of the room, standing perfectly still, facing the copier. I could just make out the silhouette of its head, tilted to the side. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The figure didn't move. It didn't turn. But the whispering started again. Louder now, right from the darkness of the room. That same wet, papery rustle. It was saying something. Over and over. One copy. Just one copy. I ran. I didn't look back. I slammed my hand on the elevator button, praying for it to arrive. I heard no footsteps behind me, just that awful, whispering mantra drifting down the hall. One copy. Just one copy. The elevator doors opened. I threw myself inside, mashing the L button until they closed. I never went back. I called in sick the next day and quit over the phone. I told my boss there was an intruder. He said he'd check the security footage and call me back. He never did. A week later, a padded envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was a photocopy. But it wasn't of a document. It was a photocopy of a face. A distorted, blurred, grayscale image stretched and smeared across the page. The features were wrong, the eyes were black smudges, the mouth was a dark, open oval, like it was caught mid-scream. But despite the distortion, I recognized the shape of the jawline and the set of the eyes. It was me. And scrawled along the bottom in faint, graphite gray letters, as if it had been written by a copier's toner cartridge, was a message. We're still here after midnight. We made a copy for you. I moved. I changed my number. But I can't escape the sound. Anytime I walk into an office or a library, if I hear that hum, that word clunk, I have to leave. Because I know it wasn't about the building. It was about being seen. It was about being copied. And sometimes I lie awake at night wondering, if it has my copy, what does it need the original for?